Hey everybody, this is Mike with the One Stop Co-op Shop, and today I'm reviewing Star Trek Alliance's Cooperative Dominion War campaign. And disclaimer that I was provided a review copy of the first and second set for this one. So in the campaign, you play through a variety of different scenarios, although you can play them all as one-offs. You outfit your ships. One set lets you play with 2 ships, so 1 to 2 players cooperatively, but you can play with up to 6 if you have multiple sets. You add upgrades to your ship and also level up as you go through the campaign. But the main action of the game comes down to tactical movement in a miniatures game-ish style. And you engage in dice-based combat with other ships, trying to blow them up, complete your objectives, stay alive. You know the drill. So let's get to 5 key things about Star Trek Alliance Dominion War. So for my number 5, I'm looking at the upgrading and experience system in the game, and this is a mix for my taste. So in each set, you only have 2 ships, so there's not a lot of variety. You're going to be using both of them in every game, but again, if you buy other sets or buy other expansions for the Star Trek system, you can bring those in. The upgrades are pretty interesting. I did find myself leaning towards some more than others, but it does let you change them out mission to mission, and some are more useful in one mission than another, so I like all of that. Although what's slightly annoying is that the upgrade cards are gated by faction, so the ones in the base set are all Federation. Pretty much all the ones in the second set they sent me are all Klingon, so you don't get as much variety as you build more sets as you might think. You're kind of locked into certain upgrades for each group. Now, what I didn't find as interesting personally is the campaign system. Basically, you're gaining experience as you go, and that's letting you spend more points on different types of things. It's fine. I just honestly found myself wanting to play this in one-off mode more than the campaign mode, but for those who really like campaigns for this kind of thing, I'm sure they'll enjoy this. For my number 4 point, which is also a mix, I'm looking at the randomness in the game, especially the die rolling in attacks and defense. On the positive side, it's exciting when you roll a ton of hits. That was not a ton of hits. Or perfectly defend against a crazy attack. Wow, we're just doing awesome here. Then the game can be really intense and fun. But sometimes you roll some trash like this, or an enemy fighting against you rolls like all critical hits. And there's some mitigation in the actions you take and the tokens you put on your ship and the upgrades you pick. But yeah, I had games where I just got blown up by an extremely lucky attack and terrible defense, or they got blown up, and it can massively swing the game. It's a quick game, but still it's worth noting. Next, for my number 3, I'm looking at the scenario design in the game, and I generally like this. There are 6 scenarios per book, so if you get the 2 sets I have, you have 12. And again, you can play them in order, and you have like a narrative to go along with it. I didn't care too much about that. But the actual scenarios themselves are pretty cool. There are a few that are a little bit too basic, like Scenario 2 especially, because it seems like the path you should take is pretty obvious. But most of them randomize where things are, so you're never quite as sure about things or where things are coming and how the enemies activate. So I found them generally engaging. I will note, though, that the initial set, Part 1, is more focused on defense and escort missions and exploration because it's the Federation. Whereas Part 2, with the Klingons, is almost exclusively blow stuff up. And I like that. I like that with the 2 sets, you get very different focuses that match the factions that are focused on in those sets. But I will also say, if you just want to start by blowing stuff up, or like you're playing with your kids like I was, Part 2 might be the best way to go. Even though you're more leveled up, you just get to smash some stuff, and that's always fun. For my number 2, I'm looking at the maneuvering system, and this is, again, the same as X-Wing, and I just love it. And I'll also say that I forget how they did it in X-Wing, but the way they do it here with these bases is lovely. It's the cleanest version of the system I've seen, because the little movement things fit right in there. You can see that guy's kind of locked in, and then it's very simple to move along. So although this is still a big miniature game with a 3x3 table, and you got to kind of walk around to get things going, I found the movement to be a pleasure. And this is just a great system. It was great in X-Wing. It's great here. Trying to judge where the enemy might be, trying to judge where you need to be, dodging around asteroids and planets, trying to get to your objectives. It's really fun. And it has that same X-Wing thing where you can take extreme maneuvers, but then you don't get to take actions for a while until you take a slower maneuver. Yeah, I just think this is a blast. It's popular for a reason. I think it's very well done here. And then for my number 1, I don't usually do this. When I talk about a solo mode or an AI, usually that's like my 3rd or 4th point. But here I want it to be my number 1 because I just think it's great. And that is the solo AI for the enemy. So enemy ships will have these little areas going off. You can see the white lines. And those correspond to these resolution spaces here, and those are just replicated to the other side. And it's a really clean system. You see which player ship is closest to the enemy ship. You see which quadrant they're in, and there's like some rules for tiebreakers. You roll a d6, and that tells you how they move. And then their attacking is really simple too, and they have like on these little cards all the kind of rules for how the enemy acts. And I just think it's an awesome, streamlined, effective system for what should be a really challenging thing, getting interesting 2D spaceship combat to work. Now, I will note a little caveat. Sometimes they're dumb. Sometimes they roll like the exact wrong thing, or they're like heading for an asteroid, and to avoid it, they kind of turn in a silly way. But that was pretty rare in the games I played. They generally were challenging me, getting in my way, getting the shots, really being a nuisance in the best way possible. So overall, you might want to try out Star Trek Alliance if you enjoy miniature battles, spaceship battles. I think it's a clean system. I like it a bit more than X-Wing because it has this great solo mode inherent. And I do think it's an awesome AI, but on the other hand, I might avoid this one if the main thing you care about is building cool ship combos, because just out of the box, there's not that much to fiddle around with. Or if the campaign mode and exploration and story are your main draws, because they were just kind of ho-hum for me. And if you want to see the game in action, Barrett did a playthrough before he left the channel. Thanks for watching, everybody. Good gaming, and I'll see you at the next stop.